Well, why now is, I believe, a valuation call. As I've said, very often in the past, emerging market stocks have sold at enormous price earnings multiples. For the market, the emerging markets as a whole, we've come down from the high 30s into the 11 to 13 range. Obviously, some of the growth stocks that are connected with the internet do not sell at 10 or 11 or 12 times earnings, but they too have come down. They're not selling at 100 times earnings. And they are, in my view, particularly attractive when you look at so-called PEG ratios. And by the PEG ratio, I mean the PE ratio divided by the growth rate. It's perfectly fine to pay 20 times earnings for a company that's growing at 20%, a PEG ratio of 1, or to pay 30 times earnings for a company growing at 30%. So yes, EMQQ has a price earnings multiple that's higher than the general MSCI or Vanguard indices that are broad-based, but they are still very attractive relative to the valuations that they've had in the past, and they're relatively attractive in terms of their PEG ratios. So I think now is in some sense an ideal time to invest in emerging markets. And my guess is when, and as I said earlier, I'm optimistic that this trade war will end because the stock market doesn't like it, American business doesn't like it, and eventually we're going to have a resolution. And when we do have a resolution, and that overhang is gone, I think you could have considerable appreciation. Now, I'm not making a short-term forecast. When I tell you that valuation ratios are good predictors of returns, I'm talking about 5 or 10 years in the future. I'm not talking about the next 6 months. I don't think anybody can tell you what will happen over the next 3 months or 6 months. But I am convinced that if you can buy absolute premium quality growth stocks that are associated with this revolution of consumers coming into the middle class with buying power, and you can buy these stocks at some of the most reasonable valuations that they have had in history, that in the long run, buying EMQQ today will, over the next 5 to 10 years, I think, make you a very happy investor.